I'm joined by the Sinn Féin President and Leader of the Opposition, Mary Lou McDonald. Mary Lou, you're very welcome to the programme, as always. Let's get down to business. Let's look at the first day back in the Dáil yesterday, and the one issue that really dominated across the floor was the energy crisis and the pressure that it's putting on people. Do you agree with the Taoiseach when he says this is going to be prolonged?
I think it has been prolonged. I'm just conscious that people in the last 12 months or so have faced 50 price hikes. I mean, an astonishing thing. Who would have thought a couple of short years ago that that was even possible? And yet it's happened. Some people have drawn a comparison between what's happening now and the 1970s, but I think the received wisdom now is what's happening now is so much more difficult than even then. So no great surprise that when the Dáil met again, that this was the big issue. People are struggling. People are struggling very hard. We're coming into the winter now, colder nights, longer nights. And the real fear for people is twofold: trying to make the bills as they are, but a fear of another hike. So we have a difference of opinion with the government in terms of the best way to intervene. And that really was the talking point or the debating point on the floor of the Dáil yesterday.
Yeah, no, you agree on one thing, which is a windfall tax. And we heard Leo Varadkar saying today that they do seem to be looking at that windfall tax. But the two differences, I suppose, you believe there should be tiered cash payments, but you also believe there should be a price cap.
Yeah.
Now, the price cap, you said, will cost about 1.6 billion. It's for 4 months of the year, October to February. Can you actually just break that down for me? Your average household, what would their bill look like between October and February with and without a price cap?
Okay. So the reason why we have pitched it from October to the end of February is because we know that most households expend about 70 to 75% of their entire annual energy in that period. The reason why we want to cut the cost and cap it is because we believe, particularly in those winter months, you need to have some level of certainty. And the Taoiseach made the point yesterday that it might not be over by the end of February. It might not be. I absolutely accept that. But where he and I differ is that I believe for those really hard months, you need to cut costs and you need to provide that level of certainty so people aren't worrying not just about the affordability of now, but of the prospect of actually facing another hike in their bills. So you asked me, what will that mean in terms of cash into somebody's pocket? It will mean a saving of about €1,000 for the average household. How we've calculated...
Between October and February.
And February, yeah.
So the government's proposal is €600 in credits.
Yeah.
So yours is an additional €400.
It is. And here's the core distinction. You see, I'm realistic enough to know that for people who are struggling, help, whatever form it comes in, is going to be welcomed. I get that. But the difficulty with the direct cash payment is that when it was done last time, do you remember the €200 payment? The reality is that by the time it hit people's accounts, sure, it had been gobbled up by hikes in price anyway.
So, but does that variable that you're talking about there, that also applies to the price cap, doesn't it?
Well, no,
so the budget that you have of 1.6 billion, given the uncertainties in the market at the moment, you can't say with any certainty that will cover the cost until February next year.
We can say this, that we have taken the costs as they were in the summer of 2021, pre the crisis. We have taken the costs now and we have calculated the differential. We're saying bring the costs back to where they were at in 2021, and then the state has to subvent the difference.
But what I'm saying is we can't predict, you can't predict, Sinn Féin can't predict where the prices are going to go between now and the end of February.
Suppliers, generators give notices of hikes. You've seen that in recent times, but you're absolutely right. Nobody can say with absolute precision exactly where prices will land.
So the 1.6 billion, you could end up going in excess of that?
No, we don't. The way the calculation that we have run tells us that the closest figure is actually 1.4 billion. We reckon it'll be that. We've built in a buffer. We also have spoken about a windfall tax, and we know at a European level they're looking at very welcome initiatives. And we believe, if properly delivered, those initiatives could have the effect of driving prices down, which would mean the subvention, the grant from the state would also come down.
Again,
but
no
let me tell
certainty
you,
with
let me be clear. This is an emergency measure. It is timelined. It is absolutely necessary. It is absolutely necessary that we do this.
Also, Mary Lou McDonald, universal. So you would get this energy price cap. Do you need that?
It's universal because it would prove virtually impossible to put in place a selective or targeted reduction and cap. But what we are also proposing as part of our package is cash payments that are very much targeted.
Yes,
very much so.
Just to focus on the price cap, we heard Michael O'Leary saying there, I am a rich person in this country. I do not need this money. Do you need this money, this price cap?
I mean, I wouldn't describe myself as a rich person, but I'm gainfully employed, and our household can manage. Absolutely, I accept that.
And you would benefit from this. But I not have an issue with that.
But this is not designed, Ciara, to benefit me. This is designed.
But it will.
But this is designed in recognition of the fact that households throughout the country who are struggling to get by need to know that their electricity bill will come down, that they will save money, and that they will have the certainty for the winter months that that there aren't going to be any increases.
But when we look, I suppose, Mary Lou, you mentioned certainty there. When we look at the UK and we look at France that have both introduced price caps, they've both had to move those price caps repeatedly. You had France come out only yesterday and say, price cap in place, given what's happened with prices, that's going to go up by 15% early next year. A reflection of just how expensive the price cap was and the lack of certainty, actually, that perhaps it offers.
Well, our proposal is timeline for the winter months. I very much hope that we will see light at the end of the tunnel sooner rather than later. I have also said to you that we're very clear that windfall tax also needs to be levied, because it's entirely wrong that big companies turn bumper profits while households struggle. And you need to find the balance in all of this. But the absolute priority is for people, and they'll be watching your programme this evening, Ciara, lots of them saying, how am I going to make this bill? And my God, if it goes up again, I am truly in difficulty.
But you'll accept that the price cap has had to move in the two countries, UK and France, where it was first introduced.
Well, increased. Look, I hope that won't be the case. But my overriding priority now, and I believe the overriding priority of any government with an ounce of decency, is to give some level of peace of mind and certainty to families that are struggling and bring their costs down. And then on the targeted measures, the cash payments that we have proposed, Michael O'Leary won't be getting 1 cent from us. He will be very happy to hear. We would tier those payments, and for income earners over €70,000, any individual earning over €70,000 would not be getting any direct cash payment under our plan.
OK, so
whereas the cap is universal, the actual direct cash payments are not. They are very much targeted at low and middle income families.
But you have targeted these at individuals, not households. Yes. And it's anybody who earns below 70,000. So could you have a scenario then where you have two people in a household bringing home 50,000 each, two individuals, household income of 100,000, they get the cash payment.
Yeah.
But a single individual earning 75,000 doesn't get anything?
Well, that's the way in which it would work. But
is that not absolutely nonsensical? You could have two people in a household earning 65,000, 130,000 coming into that household, but somebody on 73,000 doesn't get it. An individual paying all the bills by themselves.
We envisage a flat payment of €100 for anybody who earns between 60 and 70. Anything over 70, zero, nothing. But further down the food chain...
I know, but do you not just get that point, Mary Lou McDonald? Because I do find that difficult to understand in my head, how you can take two incomes from a household that could add to 120,000 and say, yes, you'll get the payment, two payments, in fact, because you're two individuals, but a single person or a family where only one parent is working and the other parent is at home, perhaps with children, earning 75,000, you don't get anything.
OK, so...
Is that the cut-off point, I'm wondering, for Sinn Féin, 70,000?
Well, for the purposes of this scheme, yes. You see, You can't argue and say, well, you have to have targeted measures, and then say, well, I don't like the targets when they are targeted.
But you could have given it to households.
Ciara,
look at a household budget.
You're focusing at people who are very much on the upper end of earnings. Most people in the Irish economy don't earn 65 or 70,000 or anything close to it. So more importantly, and just so as your viewers know, €500 would be payable to those that earn 21,000 euros or less. And that's a big section of the Irish working population, tax-paying population. And it starts at 500 and then we ratchet it down in accordance with your income level. Is it absolutely perfect? Is it absolutely anomaly-free? I don't know any scheme that is, but I can tell you this much. It is a far better combination to introduce, on the one, a cap that brings your electricity bill down, gives you that certainty, and then targeted payments rather than just an a la carte standard payment to everyone, including Michael O'Leary, who himself acknowledges he doesn't need that payment.
We have obviously discussed at length in this programme the need to find alternatives to gas and electricity. Right. I know you're against the LNG terminal and storing, and I know everybody's preference now is to move towards renewables. Does Sinn Féin have any opposition to nuclear or to ever looking at nuclear?
We don't support nuclear. We never have. We believe that we have so many other options in terms of the wind resource that we have. I mean, we've a massive opportunity, Ciara, in terms of offshore wind. Everybody acknowledges that. We're not alone in advocating that position, but we certainly don't have the kind of pace, the kind of policy framework or resource that is needed to really get that delivered and delivered in a much more quickly. I accept, look, there is clearly now an issue around, we've talked about the cost of energy, but also the security of supply. And the writing's on the wall for us as an island nation. We will have the opportunity in the coming years to achieve energy independence for the island. I believe it's a big ambition, but that's where we need to aim. But for that to happen, simple things in the system need to get sorted out, like the resourcing of the planning system for on board Planola, for example. And the industry is unanimous in saying this is one of the most significant bottlenecks and one of their most significant frustrations in delivering this essential renewable.
On Tuesday week, we're going to get the budget. Sinn Féin will publish their alternative budget tomorrow. I know one of the things you're looking at is changing the USC for workers as opposed to changing income tax rates. How would you, in general, broaden the tax base here? Because we had this Commission of Taxation report today, 116 recommendations, and a recognition, I think, across the board that to pay for everything we need to pay for in this country, everything from healthcare to housing to education to childcare, we need to broaden the tax base. Your top two ways you would do that?
Yeah, but bear in mind, we're also one of very few European states that will run a surplus this year. And bear in mind that we have currently, and this is acknowledged, an over-reliance, like a very strong reliance on the corporate tax receipts. So we need to name that. It's very welcome that the receipts are so strong, but it is perilous to rely to such a heavy extent on it.
Would you do anything, sorry to cut across you there, would you do anything to prevent a corporation tax shock in the future?
Well, how you do that is you develop your indigenous base, your indigenous industrial base. We have the very great advantage of being very attractive for foreign direct investment, for tech, for pharma, for life science. All of that's a good news story because those are good jobs, high-paying jobs. But we've never quite matched that with the spin-off and the development of the indigenous SMEs and micro-enterprise. Now, Enterprise Ireland, other state agencies do what they can, but there has to be a recalibration and much more emphasis given to developing those indigenous sectors, helping them online, helping them to build and develop and diversify in terms of export markets and so on.
And you think they have the potential to, I suppose,
I think
pay the corporation tax receipts that we have seen in the last couple of years, which is, given us the scope to introduce the type of measures we have in this
I'm not arguing, just so as we're clear, I am arguing for us to protect our FDI investment. Why would you not?
Yeah, of course.
But I am also saying that cannot be the be-all, the whole story of the Irish economic mix, because that's not healthy, not least because we want to see a level of decentralisation, development of the regions, as they're called, rural parts, and get more balanced development across the island. And a critical part of that is supporting the incredible entrepreneurs and business people, small business people that we have right across the island.
In terms of those small business people, you mentioned kind of COVID-style supports for them instead of capping their energy price, their energy bills, rather. Can you put a price on that, a figure on that?
We're still finalising those figures. It will be substantial. And it will involve repurposing the types of supports that were necessary during the COVID emergency. And actually, speaking to some, I don't have a cost for you this evening, but it will be presented, as you have said, as a package by Pierce Doherty, our finance spokesperson. Some of the business people that I've been talking to, Ciara, have told me actually this energy shock and this inflationary spiral is more serious for them than even what they went through in COVID. Astonishingly enough, I never thought I would hear those words said, but that's been said to me.
OK, so just back very briefly to broadening the tax base. You accept that has to be done?
Yes, I think we need change in our tax approach. I mean, one of the things that we have argued for is a wealth tax.
Yeah. So outside of the wealth tax, because I think Sinn Féin's been very clear on that. Outside of that.
That's a crucial widening of the tax base. I think we need to look at, this isn't a widening of the base, but it's certainly an alteration of how we're levying income taxes. We believe that individual income, and let me stress, not family income, an individual who has worked hard enough, who is lucky enough and fortunate enough to earn in excess of 140,000, we believe they should pay a little bit more income tax.
What about those around the middle? Because I think people are very clear, I suppose, who Sinn Féin have stood for in the past. But in more recent times, I think you've tried to move to represent those in the squeezed middle a bit more. So in terms of the tax base for those people, what would you suggest?
Well, I've said to you already, our personal taxation measures in the budget will afford a level of relief for every taxpayer, including, crucially, those squeezed middle income.
Through the USC
tax, yes.
That'll be the change for them.
That's the change that we're proposing for this budgetary cycle, yeah.
OK, but the entering the 40% rate of tax for people, you wouldn't increase that?
Well,
squeeze middle, I think obviously Fine Gael are proposing.
Well, they are, but you see, the downfall of taking that approach is that you don't actually give a benefit to about 70% of the workforce. Never actually pay tax at that higher level. So the advantage of how we will come at it.
I'm just talking specifically for the squeezed middle.
I know, but I'm including them here. And what I am saying to you is the approach that Pierce Doherty will set out will afford relief to all of those families and all of those workers. What the government's proposal would do is actually exclude 70% of workers. It would advantage not squeeze middle, but high income earners, and leave a whole lot of people behind.
Okay. Let's move on to the Queen. I think there was a real sense since the Queen's death that Sinn Féin as a party, particularly when we saw, I suppose, Michelle O'Neill and how she greeted King Charles III in Northern Ireland and the warmth and the openness of that greeting, that the party has kind of grown up a bit. Would you accept that?
I think the world has moved on a lot. I think, we'll have 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement, a quarter of a century of a peace process next year. I mean, thank God for that. That's a huge collective effort, a huge collective achievement. And I as a Republican, as somebody who has no truck with monarchy, who does not feel any sense of allegiance or even understanding of all of that, I was more than happy and am more than happy to acknowledge Queen Elizabeth II And the fact that at times she was a great champion of reconciliation and so on. And similarly, King Charles, now we knew him, of course, when he was only a prince. He's now King Charles. We've had interactions with him. They have always been cordial, warm, I think very direct. And I think you saw that reflected in the exchange with Michelle. And is that a change? Yes, it is. Who would have thought 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that was possible? But this shows, and I hope this gives confidence to people, on the one hand, to reaffirm just how far we've come, but also to demonstrate just how much further we can go. So, whereas
does it risk, do you think, I wonder, as the president of Sinn Féin, do you worry about the risk that you will alienate some people who fought for 30 years against British rule?
Absolutely not. I am a committed, convinced and passionate United Irelander. I believe the unity of this island is the best plan for all of us. And I also believe, and we've discussed this before, that we will have referendums on the constitutional question, on the border, in the course of this decade. I believe that we can end partition, and I look forward to that day.
Will you set aside money in your budget tomorrow for that?
But I also, I want to just finish the first question before you bounce that on me. And I also know that people who have a very strong, staunch position in terms of Irish reunification are capable of compassion and dignity and respect. And I think that's what you've seen over the last number of days. And I think that is a really, really welcome thing. And I think it has been welcomed, very warmly welcomed.
Back to that question of the referendum and your push for United Ireland. Will you set aside money in your budget for that tomorrow?
Well, interestingly enough, there's infrastructural money for all sorts and manners of projects that have been set aside for many's the long year. The problem is they haven't been delivered. And up around your neck of the woods, up around Donegal, you know all about that. Actually, the main thing that we need to happen now isn't something that is going to cost a huge amount of money. We need a government in Dublin, the government in Dublin, to actually take the decision and recognise the change is happening and that we need to prepare for it now. So what we need, we need resources, but above all else, we need political will, we need political honesty, and we need to have an appetite for engagement. So we need a green paper from the government in Dublin setting out ideas. We need a citizens' assembly. But what's lacking at this moment is the political decision to get the show on the road. OK,
last question. Talking about changing, you are riding high in the polls, Mary Lou McDonald, and have been quite consistently for some time now. I think it was 35% in the most recent poll. And you're being spoken about as the next Taoiseach in the country. And many would say sort of your trip around the world over the summer months was, you know, the actions of a Taoiseach in waiting. Have you got your fantasy cabinet ready, your list of ministers ready to go with their portfolios? Is that what's going on inside Sinn Féin, as was being reported in the Irish Examiner recently?
Well, the team is working very, very hard. And I know the polling numbers are very encouraging. It demonstrates that since the 2020 election, the appetite for change has grown. Some people thought it was a flash in the pan. It's not. The time is ripe now for change. I think most people think the idea of Micheál Martin handing over the baton to Leo Varadkar on the 15th of December is, you know, pretty farcical in a climate where so many people want to see that change. So we're working hard. I have said to all of our team, we need to be prepared. And we are also, and I am not one bit presumptuous about the outcome of the next election, whenever it might be. I am at this long enough to know that you earn your spot, and that requires hard work and dedication. And within Sinn Féin now, that's what all of us are at, and that's what I have said to my team. And I'm glad to report that they are rallying to the flag.
That doesn't surprise me. Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou McDonald, thank you for coming in to us.